Justice Edwin Cameron has been given the Order of the Baboab in gold. He was one of the recipients of national orders bestowed by President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday. Cameron has been recognized for his contribution to the judicial system. He's campaigning against the stigma for HIV and AIDS and for furthering the rights of the LGBTQI+ community. Cameron joins us now this morning to talk to us virtually. Justice, it's such an honor to speak to you. Congratulations on your award, but this is not your first award. How do you feel, though, because these ones are called the highest awards in South Africa?
Good morning, Masego, and lovely to be on your show and very wonderful to be with all your viewers. Masego, I really am thrilled, and I'm thrilled because the President conferred it for three reasons which are all worth our attention and our concern: the judiciary, HIV AIDS, continuing stigma, and of course LGBTIQ equality. So I feel very, very touched and honored that the President conferred this high award on me. And I also feel very touched that the Presidency mentioned those three critical issues in our national life.
And of course, you are important, very important in fighting for the rights of the LGBTQI+ community as well as those who live with HIV AIDS, especially during the time when South Africa was not giving people free access to ARVs. They expected people to buy them. They were not affordable. So that must be a very important celebration for you.
Yes, thank you so much, Masego. But in both cases, I was an ally of two unrecognized people. The first, of course, was a young man from Sebokeng, Simon Tseko and Kodi, who really paved the way for us to secure LGBTI equality in our constitution. And Simon very sadly died of AIDS in December 1998. And then secondly, with treatment access, the real battle was won by the Treatment Action Campaign started by Zaki Ahmed. I hope that Zaki one day will get an Order of Gold, Baboab himself, and that he'll proudly wear it. So, Masego, I've been a lawyer all my life. I've been what I sometimes refer to slightly tongue-in-cheek, but also truthfully as a white man in a suit. And I've done my work there, but there have also been activist trailblazers who I think deserve all of our recognition. Right now, there are activist trailblazers in our townships and our suburbs who are trying to get our country on the right track. And so I'm really pleased that recognition comes in due time.
And also, Justice Cameron, a lot of people, I think don't know the things that some people know from reading the fact that you actually had a difficult childhood. For you to become the person that you are today, you went through many, many battles. And for instance, living in Queenstown, at an orphanage because your mother could not afford to take care of you after the arrest of your father, having to have lose your sister in such a horrible way at the age of 7.
Thank you very much, Masego, for your kind words. And of course, it's important because my father being in prison gave me as a young white kid an understanding of stigma. And it, of course, informs my present main job, which is as inspecting judge of prisons. And then being a white kid growing up in poverty, even under apartheid, gave me an understanding both of the stigma of poverty, but also of how my white skin gave me the steps out of it. Getting into Pretoria Boys High, an outstanding secondary school, all white. Getting into Stellenbosch University, one of the country's top universities, all white. So those burdens of my childhood, I think, Masego, are ones that many of our kids share. We've got many child-headed households. I was never in a child-headed household. My mum always tried to take care of us. There was a children's home for my sisters and me. As you rightly say, Masego, we suffered a bereavement. I don't think there's a single family in South Africa that hasn't suffered an AIDS or a COVID bereavement or some other. We're losing over 20,000 people a year in criminal murders. We're losing about 20,000 people a year in motor collisions. So we've got a high rate of traumatic death in our society. And I think all of these things humble one and make one think how much work there still is to be done to make our country the country that we all want to be proud of.
And Justice Cameron, I mean, looking at the fact that when you came out to tell the world that you are proudly gay back those years ago, you know, it was difficult for men to come out and say that proudly already that time. But looking at how, you know, gay people still need to fight for their space in the world, even in this day and age, in the 21st century, how does that make you feel, especially because you're a person who's fought to make sure that there's equality?
We've achieved so much, Masego, but as you rightly say, there's still so much we've got to do. And of course, sitting where I am now in my and my partner's nice ground floor flat, I'm safe. And he and I are safe. We are loved by the community we live in. But of course, if you're a black lesbian living in a township, you're much more at risk. And then there's a troubling thing that came to my attention recently. A couple of colleagues told me that a very senior deputy judge president who had died, a very well-known man, had been outspokenly homophobic about me. And I was quite shocked because I spent my entire legal career as an out, proudly gay man, and I got a lot of affirmation from black and white colleagues, men and women, straight people. And of course, you don't hear the racist comments, the homophobic comments, but your point is right, Masego, that it is still a struggle through the rest of Africa especially. We cannot rest on our queer laurels in South Africa until the whole of Africa, the whole of the Caribbean, the whole of the Middle East and North Africa, until lesbian, gay, transsexual, bisexual and transgender people are safe there.
And of course, you know, going back to the Constitution, before you became a constitutional court judge, you fought against many of the wrongs that you were able to identify, especially via the Constitutional Court. Now, the Constitutional Court and the Constitution itself was, you know, tested very dramatically this year. We know what happened throughout the course of the year with the former president, etc. When you watch this sitting at your home as a retired Constitutional Court judge and as a person who fought for this country's constitution, what did you think?
Masego, are you asking me to be controversial on a beautiful Sunday morning?
Absolutely
not. Let me accept your invitation. Masego, let me say a couple of things, and I'm going to say one controversial thing. I was so proud of my colleague, Sisi Kampepe, and the majority judges. Sisi Kampepe is a redoubtably brave person. I would happily have had her there in front of the president on Thursday or Friday instead of me, and I hope she'll be there. She is a courageous woman and a black person, and she also was a public interest lawyer in the 1980s. She took a stand on President Zuma's deliberate defiance, his contempt, his subversive statements. Now, we're dealing in our country with a Trumpian crisis of false facts and untruths. And the scale of the untruths in our country is matching that in the United States. So I would like to say, Masego, that former President Zuma is not a victim. He's not being persecuted. He's being called to account for misdeeds and alleged misdeeds, which the state seeks an opportunity to prove. And he will have an opportunity to defend himself, to say, no, I didn't do it, or what happened in the previous trial was misleading, or the other judgments were wrong. Let him take his chance. The whole narrative, as young people like to call it, about President Zuma is terribly damaging and dangerous. And I think our country needs to wake up. There's a similar narrative about Judge President Hlophe, who has been found guilty of gross misconduct, terrible misconduct, offenses against the judiciary. In fact, what he's been found guilty of probably fits the definition of several crimes as well. He has not been put onto a charge sheet yet. Maybe he will be. There's a similar narrative. So I want to say one more controversial thing, since you're provoking me, Masego. And that is that the minority judges in the two splendidly courageous and outspoken and brave judgments that Justice Sisi Kampepe led earlier this year about the Zuma contempt of court, the offenses that he committed. The minority judgments, I think, made a terrible mistake, and I hope the two colleagues who did that will be thoughtful and repentful, and I hope that they will be remorseful about some of the things they said. because we've had many divisions. I was on that court with Justice Jafta for 11 years. They were difficult years because he and I were often on opposite sides. I never accused him of unconstitutional conduct. Justice Leona Theron, she and I we were allies often, we were also opponents, dividing in the court. I never accused her of unconstitutional conduct. So I hope that they will be remorseful about the extent of impropriety and inappropriateness of those comments, and that they will come to see what a pivotal moment this was. 3 judgments, Masego, have settled our country's commitment to the rule of law. It's an imperfect commitment. Ask someone living 5 or 8 kilometers from here in Alex. The rule of law often doesn't prevail there. Zandspruit, where those young people were murdered, eight of them just a few months ago. But nevertheless, we're a functioning democracy under a constitution and rule of law, which we must improve. 3 judgments. The first was the judgment of Justice Arthur Chaskelson and Justice Nkonzo Pius Langa and the whole Constitutional Court, which required President Mbeki to start making ARVs available. Today, we've got the world's biggest publicly provided antiretroviral treatment program. Why? Because of the Treatment Action Campaign and Zaki Ahmed that took President Mbeki to court. 2, because of brave judges like Justice Chaskelson, Justice Langa, like the rest of that court, who ordered President Mbeki at a terrible time. People didn't think that the Constitutional Court would do it. They were brave enough to do it. The second judgment is a judgment given by Chief Justice Mogoeng. And Masego, if you're going to ask me to be controversial about Chief Justice Mogoeng, I declined the invitation. I've been enough controversial this morning. Let me mention the judgment. It was the judgment that upheld Public Protector Thuli Madonsela when that office was still occupied by a woman of integrity and moral standing and legal ability, Thuli Madonsela. We upheld her judgment in the Nkandla case, and Chief Justice Mogoeng gave what I called a sermon to the nation, and especially a sermon to Parliament for dereliction of duties. And later, when Chief Justice Mogoeng heard that I'd called his judgment a sermon, he chuckled. I think he liked it. The third judgment that really confronted the violation of the rule of law was Justice Sisi Kampepe's 2 judgments this year. So of grave importance. And don't ask me about Chief Justice Mogoeng because I won't say anything. I'll just look very pious.
All right, I'll move from Chief Justice Mogoeng. He has finished his tenure anyway, but we know we've got, we're going to get a new Chief Justice quite soon. You mentioned, for instance, your Judge John Hlophe and some of the accusations against him. How does this look, Justice Cameron, for people of this country?
They're not accusations. They're not accusations. There was a carefully determined finding by 3 lawyers of outstanding quality led by a respected former judge. So Absolutely. These are findings of gross misconduct. Sorry to be a technical lawyer, but please go back to your question.
It's okay. You're helping me. You're helping me, Justice Cameron. So in terms of
Thanks,
having a judge such as John Hlophe, having been part of the list before obviously being kicked out of that list, thinking that they could still come on and actually apply to become a constitutional court judge, such an important court for this country.
And what about current Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhubane,
I was coming there.
Whom we found, and here in a judgment co-authored by Justice Leona Theron and Justice Sisi Kampepe, found that she'd lied to us in the Constitutional Court. So if you want me to burst into tears on a beautiful Johannesburg Sunday morning, I'll burst into tears, but don't provoke me, Masego.
Okay, just very quickly on the public protector. She's an advocate that is supposed to protect the public. I mean, that's essentially what she's supposed to do. But she's been found erring in many judgments, judges being scathing.
And untruthful.
And judges being scathing and saying that she actually didn't even have a legal understanding or interpretation of certain acts and laws.
What are you provoking me to say, Masego?
I am provoking you to tell me how the people of South Africa continue to trust the judiciary, Justice Cameron, when we're seeing such unfolding in front of our eyes.
Well, it's a struggle, and I think all of those judgments by honest, credible, hard-working judges committed to truth and to the Constitution have shown that this public protector is in a gravely misplaced position, and that her competence and her integrity are gravely under shadow. So I think it's a continuing struggle. Every day when we meet people at the traffic lights, when we meet, when we are at risk of our lives or our safety, in our homes, too many people, we've got a terrible crime rate, 7 times the average rate of murders in the world. So we've got a daily struggle, but Masego, let me go back to something if we're wrapping up now, because I don't want to end on a negative note.
Please,
We've got,
I was going to ask
under
you
President Zuma,
to say something positive.
I'm going to,
like you said, it's a beautiful Sunday.
Yes, I want to. It's such a beautiful Sunday, and we've got a beautiful country, and we've got the people, Masego. Let me tell you why. We were at a very low point in 2002 with President Mbeki's AIDS denialism. We were losing up to 500,000 people. Many of your viewers now will feel a stab in their heart because they lost parents or children or loved ones or community members or congregants to the AIDS epidemic. And now we've got, as I mentioned, the world's largest publicly provided antiretroviral treatment program. 6 million people like me are taking our tablets every day, and here I am. I'm vigorous and I'm grateful for it. So we can do it. And an important fact that's worth making, if we've still got time, is that the ARV rollout is a public-private partnership. The Ndlovu Care Group, the BITS, Partners for Health, they're all helping to get the government rollout and to monitor it and to get people onto ARVs if they aren't there yet. There's nothing we can't fix. Former President Zuma did enormous destruction in appointing criminals to head crime intelligence, even the police. We've got grave criminal allegations against the current head of police. But there's nothing we cannot fix. There are enough people of integrity and determination and commitment to justice and fairness and to equality and to non-racism in our country. Let's start and let's recommit ourselves to it. We can do it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for ending that on a positive note. Justice Edwin Cameron, it was such a pleasure speaking to you, and congratulations on your latest award. All right, that is Justice Edwin Cameron. He is also a recipient of the Baboab Award that was bestowed on him by President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday, and he got that in gold. Very well deserved.